Hi, everyone. Welcome to Laura's View and Tarot 2. We have a subscriber spotlight for you. Now, joining me today is my moderator and right-hand lady, Julie.
Hi, everyone.
Julie's also known as Trans Granny if you interact in the comments. And our guest today is Clementine Libre. Clementine emailed me and said that she was familiar with some very empowering information that followed along really nicely with my information a few days ago about the ask, or using your body kind of as a pendulum. And so I'm going to let Clementine have the spotlight here for a minute. Hi, Clementine.
Hi, Laura, and hi, Julie. Can you hear me? All right. Yay. So, thank you very much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I love your channel and I love your videos. And I was so excited to hear you talking about the ask as an extra at the end of the video from the other day, which I forget what the main topic was, but it was a great video. And it got me excited. So I made a comment, and from there we had an email. But I had started working with that type of a tool probably more thoroughly around like 2009, and I was familiar with it prior just through like muscle testing and things like that. But that's the first way that I learned to work with like the body pendulum and the body dowsing, body testing, was to do the forward and backward and see where you went, right? So I was very excited when I first learned that information, because I was kind of going through a complete metamorphosis as far as health and nourishment, nutrition, and things like that were concerned. And my body was guiding me to change things, but I was a little lost in a lot of areas. So I was able to, really be able to figure out like what was going to work best for me and not. And in fact, using that tool was something that led me to sharing with people at one point that not every superfood is super for you, because we go, oh, it's a superfood, and so that means it's healthy and amazing no matter what. Well, that's not necessarily true. Just like some people can't take aspirin, or we're all very different, and so it's good to be able to kind of figure it out, and to have a tool like that where you can do a little bit of checking around ahead of time before having something and then going, wow, this gives me a headache, or this doesn't, feel well with my digestion, or I'm having a bit of a allergy to this food. You can check it ahead of time and possibly avoid those types of situations as well. So it seems like the most common way that tool is used. Um, Later on, I ended up reading this book. It was by Dr. David R. Hawkins, called Power versus Force. And in this book, he had people who were basically experts at applied kinesiology. And they did things such as measuring consciousness and having a scale all the way from, like grief, guilt, all the way to joy, love, and how they, scaled it with a number and where they land, and then what the consciousness globally is, where it shifted, which was like in, I guess, 1987, there was a big leap. It had stayed at like 150 or something for many, many years, and then there was this leap up to like 250, which was a huge leap when you're looking at consciousness, which went to, I don't remember the word label there to that number, but it was from, just a really basic consciousness awareness sort of level, as far as a collective. There was a huge leap around 1987, which was really interesting to learn in that book. They also went page by page through the Bible and through the teachings and scaled those. It's just such a fascinating book, and I learned so much. Yes.
Well, I was wondering if you were going to, I understand you do a broad spectrum of different techniques to be in touch with yourself and even the world around us and spiritually. if you were going to share probably a really good kind of primer level type of tool that you would like to talk to people about, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I would say something to explore, and everybody's going to learn this a little differently, and they're going to know what's best for them. Something to explore is exactly how to go about the process. So whether or not you're asking a question to get a yes or no, or whether or not you're making a statement to get a true or false, you can use your body. So primer, that like the most basic would be to use the body. So that'd be the forward and the backward to get your confirmation, right? And then the next level up, I would say would be like pendulum, which are pretty simple to get a hold of and find and utilize and learn how to use. But I would recommend that you always start with a firm basis every single time you utilize it, because we are electromagnetic beings. We are impacted by things around us, and we're always changing. The timeline's always changing. You may get a yes on a food on Sunday and on Wednesday get a no on that same food, for instance, because maybe that day it's just not so great for you. So it's always good to recheck things too, and not just go, well, I got yes on it once and it's okay forever. That's not necessarily true. But I always start out with making a statement that I know is true, like my name is Clementine, and seeing, okay, so my favorite tool is the divining wands, for these. And the wands are going to either open or close, depending on your yes or your no. Now, if you're a male or female, it may be that all of your no's are open and all of your yeses are closed, or vice versa. We all have a very different energetic field. And like I said, we're being energetically impacted by what's around us. So you do definitely want to be aware of all of that, as well as just kind of clearing all energy when you get ready to utilize your tool, whether it's your body pendulum, whether it's doing the fingers and pulling to see if you're strong or weak. That's another tool that costs you nothing. You just carry it with you everywhere you go, which is amazing. And I resort to this often because I don't take my divining wands everywhere I go. I usually have a pendulum with me. Sometimes people ambush me out there and they're like, can we do this? And I'm like, yeah. But definitely get that firm basis, because your yes and your no can change. It's not likely that they will, but they can. There used to be this old wives' tale trick that they did with a needle on a string, and they would hold it above the belly of a pregnant woman to find out if it's going to be a boy or girl. And, a circle would be girls and back and forth would be boys. But that also depends on whether it's a male or female energy that's holding the needle. So if it was supposedly, if it was a male holding the needle, if it was circles, it was a boy. And if it was back and forth, it was a girl. It was female energy holding the needle, it was the opposite. So there's little subtleties like that to keep in mind and to play with. And that will get you to a point where you're like, okay, I really get it. I have a friend who all of her yeses are across and all of her no's are open, where mine are the opposite. So it's an interesting process. But what's cool is you can use it to do deeper dives and to find out like very unknown information as well. So there's ways to like take it, levels that are just not so simple. So you can kind of go all over the place with it. It's just super fun. Does anybody have?
I noticed when you were just demonstrating those rods, they were moving for you even as you were talking about them.
Yeah, they get excited.
I was wondering if you could pick them back up and just ask a couple questions and we could see them in motion, watch.
Absolutely. So, well, does anybody have who wants to throw something out there?
Gosh.
Something simple, or
okay, I got one.
All right.
Because I went to the dentist this week. Am I going to get this tooth resolved?
Okay.
That's kind of weird. Some questions, some might be a because I can't go right now. It's too expensive. So
there's nobody else here. So nobody else's electromagnetic field is going to affect my reading. So that's a good thing. And that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're using divining wands, because other people's electromagnetic fields will impact. For instance, there's this really cool test that I saw demonstrated on stage one time at a consciousness event where the guy was showing us about our electromagnetic fields, and when he would get far from you, they would close, and then as he would approach you, as soon as he got into your field, they would open up. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And so he was measuring, okay, so your field starts about here. It was a woman. And then he said, do you have your husband here with you? And she says, yes. He says, have him come up here. And then he whispers something to the husband. He says, okay, they're going to be right back. They step off the stage. She comes back and he starts going towards her, and it's already open. So he had to almost leave the building before they finally went back out of her field. And what he had done is he told the husband, take her behind stage and give her the most passionate kiss you've ever given her in years. And so when she came back, her electromagnetic field was like as big as the building.
That's hilarious.
So it's stuff like that to kind of keep in mind. It will impact, your readings. And so for me, typically my yes is going to be a big open, and my no's are going to go straight across. It depends. There's subtleties and things you're asking. Some things are very dependent upon timelines that are changing very, very, very rapidly. So sometimes they'll hesitate and they'll kind of just go straight ahead, or they won't give me a very, they'll open only part way, or they'll take a little longer. And I do believe, in my perception, that is because it's affected by timeline. And it's something that you're going to have to check frequently versus getting any kind of a firm, yes or no on. And so what I do is, what I learned from that book is I always make a statement and confirm true or false to that statement versus a question. This may be different for other people. In my experience, when I would do questions, I was actually getting false negatives and false positives. And there was a point where I didn't feel that this tool was actually working and that it was inaccurate. Until I realized I was actually not using it to the best of my abilities. And so when I switched over to making a statement, a firm statement, so for instance, I could say, is Julie's tooth going to be resolved? Or I could say, Julie's tooth will be resolved. This is true. And so then when I say it that way, it's going to say, yes, it's true, or no, it's not true. So it's giving me a true or false, which is the same as a yes or no, but it's a different energy when you make a statement versus a question. So that's the
Right.
That's the way I'll do it. But first I'll just say, my name is Clementine Libre. This is true. So I'm going to get a big yes on that one. Then I clear them. All right. My name is, won't even let me say my name is Laura. So that, no, my name is not Laura. All right. So Julie's tooth is resolved. This is true. Yeah, there's a little bit of a timeline going on there. Ultimately, yes, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So it's ultimately yes. Your tooth.
Yay! Because it's been a long time in the works. Cool, thank you.
It's like, see how the yes is like not all the way back, like. So it may be resolved, not 100% exactly the way you imagine, but definitely resolved, definitely a positive. There may be like something in there that we're not foreseeing. When it's like a huge positive yes, they'll kind of pulling back and like hit me in the neck.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's,
yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and I highly recommend finding divining wands. Pendulums are cool too, but if there's any wind or movement, so you have to be very still and you have to have no movement. But then I always would do the same thing with a pendulum. I'll do some test statements and get my yes and no, and then go from there, just in case. So.
Yeah, I was wondering, could we do it with a statement that I've thought of?
Yes, absolutely.
You might want to reframe it a little bit. But my statement would be the The practice I am engaging in of sending any negative energy directed towards me to source is effective.
Okay. Laura's practice of sending negative energy to source is effective. This is true. Yes, it is. It's a big yes.
Good, I'll keep it up.
There's one that doesn't go all the way back, and that's maybe just a matter of when you send it back, you're sending it back all with love, it looks like, and that's probably why it's so effective. And then just it's like a reminder to making sure that the negative that is experienced, it's only basically labeled as that, as an identifier for that specific purpose, to know exactly which direction to go and how to redirect it, and that it gets no more energy other than that. That's kind of what it's saying.
Usually how I frame it is that any negative energy that is attached to me or being directed towards me or intended for me, I send it back to my loving creator to be purified and repurposed according to my loving creator's desire, and not available as negative energy on this plane of existence or timeline ever again. Slowly cleaning this, cosmic plane up a little bit.
I love it. I love it. I have one, I say, only positive, benevolent, loving, for the love of all, service to others oriented beings are allowed to connect with me in this realm or in any other. And I just like, that's it.
Cool.
That's all that's allowed.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know what?
Anytime you start to feel that kind of energy coming towards you, that's a good one too. Right.
Sorry, I was trying, because I hadn't done this body test, muscle testing, or whatever anybody wants to call it. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
So I was really goofing around today. I'm like, I'm going to have some fun with this. And so I was like, before I brushed my teeth, I had my husband's fluoride toothpaste. I asked, is this good for me? I didn't even ask. I was holding it and I went way back. And then I had my non-fluoride toothpaste, and same thing. I didn't even ask. But you have to clear your mind. You have to, because you can bias your questions, I'm sure, or influence. Like if you're on the cupcake and it's totally, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have this one way or another. You gotta like be real with it. And so I was having some fun. Even like things that we think are really good for us. Like I have some protein drinks because I have really severe parosmia from COVID. A year and a half, I have not been able to smell or taste. Well, it distorts it into horrible things you don't want to know.
Yeah.
But I'm really struggling to eat. I have to force myself to eat because it's really disgusting. So I was trying to drink some protein drinks, and even though they can be plant-based, or, I'm not saying there's none out there that's good, but I know that they're highly refined and they could contain things that maybe there might be one or two ingredients that aren't good for our bodies. And the two that I had, I got backwards on. So you rethink. You don't want to waste money. You can do it in the store. It's kind of fun. So yeah, it was awesome.
And you can keep it really simple with pretty much everything, because really when we say, is this good for me, that's so sort of, it's like, well, what do you mean by good? What does good for you really mean? And what's the energy behind, is this good for me? Does it mean, are you really wanting to know, is it bad for me? Or, is it actually really good for me? So like you can make it, simplify it just by saying, this is a good decision for me at this time. This is true. But this is a good choice for me at this time. This is true. And you're cutting out any sort of static in the field that can confuse whether or not you're going to get a very clear answer. And I recommend everybody do that. Just really simplify it. This is a great choice for me at this time. This is true. If it says no, that's okay. That doesn't mean that tomorrow it's not. It might be just that day. No, the body doesn't want it. The next day, the body's like, hey, I could actually have this today. This is great. With the cupcake thing, we're all going to do that, but that's justification. And so we don't even need our wands and whatnot, in that case, because it's like the minute you're having a discussion with yourself, I mean, who are you having a discussion with? Your higher self, right? So if the answer wasn't yes immediately, we already know the answer. So now we're going to kind of like sift around for the way we can justify this, is that bad? No, I mean, we're all going to do it. And sometimes we're going to go, well, last time I had this, I felt kind of tired afterward. Am I willing to feel kind of tired afterward again? Because I know this probably isn't the best decision. Yeah, because it's going to taste good. Well, then at least you're making a conscious decision and you're not like spiritually sidestepping your higher self, which already knows the answer. You wouldn't be asking the question, right? So those kinds of things are a little easier to figure out. And I think we are all going to make choices that aren't going to be our best choice. But if we do it knowing it's not the best choice and we still decide to make that choice, there's way more power in that. And there's way more ability to change, especially if it's a habit we're trying to change. It's going to come down the road than if we bury it, look the other way and just do it anyway. And then 2 days later, all of a sudden we have this guilt because we kind of swept something under the rug and didn't really actually make an empowered decision about it. So, yeah. So fun.
Well, Clementine, I want to thank you for joining us today. That was fascinating. Those divining rods. Now I'm going to have to try some of those. But especially teaching us how to focus in on the right way to frame things. Our questions. Now, I did have one last question. Well, actually, two last questions for you. Number one, in some of the advice I've received about this, they said sometimes it's very effective to know which direction is north and face north. Is that something you found to be true?
I've never heard that. So it hasn't seemed to impact my experience. I typically am facing east if I'm home, or actually northeast. But I would say that's definitely something that people could play around with and see if they notice a difference, and just do the same thing twice in the opposite direction and see what happens. But yeah, no, I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, well, it sounds like people kind of know to come to you when they have questions that could be sussed out using esoteric methods. So if you had to tell us one final thing, what would be your strongest skill, ability, or claim to fame?
Oh my gosh. I would say my strongest skill or ability is to really tap in, care, and help people, resolve whatever it is they're looking toward resolving, and really focus on, what's really going on, and really, really, truly do my best to help a person. But not only that, but to teach them whatever it is I just help them with, because I really feel that while we all need each other, we don't need to rely on each other for so many things all the time. And the more that we can do on our own and then also teach it to other people, as we learn it, we become more confident, we teach it, the better. We all really benefit from having that trust in ourselves. And there's been just like such a long period of time, it feels like, in consciousness where so many people just didn't. And we're finally, moving into this age where people are actually going, hey, I have a lot of resources, I have a lot of power, I have a lot of intuition, I'm learning how to use it. And so yeah, that'd be probably my strongest skill, is just to be able to pass it on and say, go for it, give you the confidence to go for it, do it yourself. Yeah.
Oh boy, I so agree. That's why I thought I want to take the mystery out of tarot cards. I want to kind of explain what elements in the cards are bolstering my intuition and just take the mystery out of it. I got a little frustrated with people that went, I'm getting this, and they wouldn't explain why they got the message.
Yeah.
I want people, the best teachers teach themselves out of a job, just like the best armies teach themselves, so I want people to slowly pick up skills and realize that, you know, they've got a lot of personal power and start exploring it. That's just one of the things I feel very passionate about. Well, Julie, thank you for joining us today. And Clementine, this has been so fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am on social media, so if anybody wants to find me out there, it's the Love Oracle OG, and that is on Instagram and Facebook.
And I have
Wonderful.
links for that. I'll put them on your the description box under this video. And Julie, I know you wanted to say goodbye, and I'm going to miss you, but thank you for being here for this.
Oh my gosh, thank you everyone. Thanks for all the love that is just felt throughout this whole channel. It's growing and it's beautiful. And you know, I was thinking, because I'm learning all these new things. My awakening started, you know, right after my husband he almost died 7 times, and I had to be alone on my own a lot. And so I'm really reaching and growing on my own from within. So all these new modalities are so new to me, but I love it because I didn't know these things all my life. But I know that a lot of these new things, esoteric, it doesn't come without bias, and it's not for everyone. And I think that if we can just, you know, relax a little bit and say, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to learn about it. If it's not for me, it's not for me. But I'm finding that the spiritual side, we need so much these days. We just need it. It's going to help us get through all this hard stuff. So I thank you, Clementine, for bringing this amazing knowledge that you have for all of us. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you. And I love you all. And thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you so much, Laura.
Well, thank you, everybody. And until next time, all 3 of us wish you love and light.